So in very simple words, the first thing that I want to ask each one of you, I want you to respond and use your chat buttons and tell me why behind every failed leader, there is an excuse. I hope if you can really understand this question clearly, why behind every failed leader, there is an excuse. Can you use your chat buttons and respond to me that what do you mean by this? Yeah, let me go through some of the responses and understand. So, okay, lack of ownership. Now is saying not taking accountability. What else? Why? Why behind every failed leader, there is an excuse? So Rao is saying to justify leaders' failures. Great. What else? So short-term success. Okay. Lack of ownership. What else? This is interactive. So the more you respond, the more we will talk. Nidhi is saying that they fail because they feel they are boss, not a leader, behind their excuse. Great. So lack of self-belief or execution. Okay. Now I ask the same question in a different way. Now tell me, what is behind a successful leader? What do they say? If a failed leader has an excuse every time, what do a successful leader says? And don't think about leaders only related to your bosses. You can think about yourself, because my next question would be focused on that direction. So what successful leader says if a failure says that there is an excuse? Okay, they inspire team for a common goal. Okay, they take accountability and they lead by example. Thank you, Tao. I mean, yeah, will tell solutions. Okay, so the leader will tell solutions. Okay, wonderful. Empowering others and gives credit of success to the team. Wonderful, because this is something you will find that we will start getting the answers of what these top CEOs of this world do. What else? So what a successful leader will say? They always inspire others. Okay, Shrey, thanks. So they lead from the front. What else? Okay, whereas failure takes themselves. Okay, so do you think that a successful leader will make, you know, situations favorable from the excuses what a failure leader says? So the difference between a failed leader and a successful leader is that a successful leader will start finding out solutions, will start finding out ways where a failed leader has given an excuse. Do you agree with me? A successful leader will find out ways where the failed leader was giving excuses. The excuse can be any, right? Now, in very simple words, now I want to ask you a very simple question. A very simple question I'm going to put forward to this group. Tell me, what was the last significant failure that you had? And what excuse? So first question is, did you have any significant failure in your life? In the recent past or in the past itself, whatever way you want to say. So I'm sure, do I get a yes that most of you had some or the other failure in your lives? Significant failures. I'm not talking about small failures, some significant failures, right? So how many of you agree on this? So there are many who are saying that yes, there are many failures that you've all faced in your life, right? So tell me, I just want to ask you a very simple question now. What was your excuse at that time? What was your excuse at that time? Think about it and answer it. Whom did you blame for your failure at that time? Can somebody tell me? Anybody, anything. So I'm not asking your situation, neither I am interested to, but I'm asking you a simple question. Whom did you blame? Myself. What else did you blame for? What was your excuse? Was it money? Was it what do you say, what resources that you have. So money was one resource, time is one resource, that I don't have time. So if suppose somebody wants to reduce their body weight and they say that, in the next 3 months, I'll do jogging, I'll do dieting, I'll do everything. And after 3 months, let's say in the month of April, they started in January, now it's April. What will you blame for? What will you blame? Let's take this situation. What will you blame? Is it time? Is it money? Is it something else? We blame to circumstances, right? We blame to our wrong decisions. What else? So the point is that, okay, you didn't understand the process. So what happens is that when we don't achieve our success, we start blaming things around us. We start blaming people around us. My boss is, because of my boss, I'm a failure. Because my parents did not give me the studies, I'm a failure. Because I failed because I didn't have the money. I failed because I didn't have a car, I could have done better. How many of you agree on this, that we start blaming around everything around us? Except us. Except us, we blame everyone. How many of you really agree on this? We will always blame situation. If I work for that particular company, I'll start doing better. If winters will go off, I will start jogging. If my boss will change, I think I will do better. If I don't work in this job, if I do that job, which is very lucrative, I will do better. We start blaming everything around us, except us. Now tell me, how many of you can change people around you and your situations around you? How many of you? First of all, tell me, can you change all the situations around you? Or if not all, some situations around you? Or people around you? Because at the end of the day, people sell to people. People buy from people. We work with people. We don't work with machines. We don't work with material. Ultimately, we work with people, right? So when we work with people, with each other, what exactly happens? Can we change the other person? So who has to change at the end of the day if you want to be a successful leader? So yes, so Surinder is saying some situation I can change. Yes. So if I am very bored, let's take an example that if I am very bored with my current job, if I am not getting results, if I am getting fired every second day, what will I do? I'll say, let me change this job and let me move to some other organization. Maybe, those things can be of some use to me. And what happens when you do that? What happens when you do that? You change the job, and after 3 months, you start finding those problems are again haunting you. So ultimately, who has to change? Yeah, precisely. Thanks, Sao, that you're saying that, it's about area circle of concern beyond control. So that's not in your control. What is in your control? You yourself. So the more you make excuses, that means you are saying that because of lack of resources, you are not able to achieve your goals. And is that true? Is that true for a leader, that he keeps blaming about the resources, lack of resources is the cause of your failures? Right? So you can't keep blaming your resources around. Yes? So what you have to do, you have to bring a change in yourself. You have to introspect yourself. Great. So if you have understood this, we will take and understand that what outstanding people do. So outstanding people, they tend to remain focused and in control, whereas average people tend to lose control. Do you agree with this particular statement? That outstanding people tend to remain in control, whereas average people tend to lose control. Because we have people who actually work and they show results within the same circumstances, with the same resources available to them, with the same situations available to them. Whether you are working, if you are in sales, if you are in whatever office that you are working, the situations are more or less similar to everyone. In a different way, it comes in a different way. Like I tell every time, wherever you are working, there is always a villain in a movie. So you always get a villain in the movie. But the situations are same. But outstanding people, they tend to remain focused and controlled. they don't lose control like average people do. So if you agree with this, then who will tell me that what do outstanding people have? What do they have that they do every time and they show success every time? You see Sachin Tendulkar, you see Narendra Modi, you see George Obama, you see, what do they do? Why do we see that, every time they come, they are able to show that success every time? What makes them to do that thing differently? Okay, passion, focus on an area where changes can be made, persistent in their effort. So what makes them persistent in their efforts? They believe themselves. Wonderful. Thanks, Suren. They believe themselves. So in very simple words, how that determination comes. So I'm challenging you back. How that happens? Why an average person tend to lose that? And what makes them to be every time? Don't you think that Narendra Modi, Sachin Tendulkar, and all those celebrities of the world that we see, don't you think that they face the same problem like you? Don't you think that they face failures? When they lose elections, when they lose matches, when they are criticized by their fans, when everything happens, what happens? They also lose their vision, but still they come back and perform every time. Okay, so they love what they are doing. Wonderful. Thank you so much, Sumit. They have positive thinking, they have determination. But from where it is coming? Can somebody tell me from where do they bring that? And whereas an average person is not able to, from where average people fail to bring that? Great, thank you, Rao. From within. Anybody else? From where do they bring? Because I'm going to ask a further question to that. If it is within, then how? Failure gives them more strength to do. So don't you think that average person, when they fail, do they die? No, they also try, but average person tend to lose control very often, and they don't. So within there is a willingness. Great. So within, if this is coming as within there is a willingness, or by following with other outstanding people, they are destined to get success. Now, how they do it? How they are able to do that within? And rest of us, we talk about our problems around us. We start blaming our organization, we start blaming our bosses, we start blaming our salaries, we start blaming our traffic, we start blaming everything or everyone except us. Right? So somewhere we need to understand that what do they do? So that's the whole idea that I was trying to bring in by making this one particular slide, that every time when you go out tomorrow, start thinking about and think about within that what exactly they do within, right? So we are disorganized. You see my saying we are disorganized. Great. So we are disorganized, but at the same time, we can be an outstanding people. So do you want to be an outstanding person? First question. Do you want to be an outstanding person at this point of time? A simple question is this. Do you want that you want to showcase every time that you can fight out and you can behave like Modi, you can behave like Sachin Tendulkar, you can behave like Obama, or you can behave like any personality that you follow in your life? And in my next slide, you are seeing that some of the top-notch 5 top CEOs of the world. How many of you know them? How many of you know very clearly? Or how many you are seeing it for the first time? These are the top 5 CEOs. I have taken it only from Google. I am not a rocket scientist that I have figured out from some magazine. It is only from Google. I just wrote top 5 CEOs and I have got this. So how many of you knew all 5? Or there is something new for you? Let's understand from each one of you. Is there anyone that you have not heard of? Okay, all new except one. Okay, great. Okay, so think about it. You know, these are the people who are, so somewhere you are actually getting impacted by them directly or indirectly. They are touching you in some or the other way. That's why they are the Fortune 500 company CEOs. Now today, the whole idea that why we are sitting here today is because we are going to understand that, so BlackRock is actually into investment banking. So you can check out in more detail. You can note down these, you can take a screenshot, and we are recording this session. These are some of the 5 names that came on the Google when I typed top 5 CEOs or top CEOs of the world. So this is what we have got. Now, what we have to understand out of this program today is that what do all of them have? And not all of them, but all those CEOs who are sitting on their chairs, what do they have in common? How do they behave? What do they work? What makes them so special as a leader? Somewhat they are doing something. They are actually managing the whole of the economy of this world today. So what exactly they do? What kind of behaviors that they exhibit? What kind of qualities that they exhibit? What actions do they take when they fail? What actions do they take when they are facing a situation of sorting out problems? What kind of situations when they have to build the organization? What kind of situations when they have to manage people? What kind of situations when they see a complete failure of their projects? So what exactly these outstanding people or these top end CEOs does? This is just an example of 5 CEOs, but there is something which is very common in all of them. Can somebody try to make an attempt? What are at least 1, 2, 3 things that they all have, what others don't? Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Rao. It's mutual funds. Great. Consistency and continuous commitment. Okay. What else? Give me a few very quick bites. What do you think that you feel that, these 5 top CEOs have everything in, they have certain few things common. Continual efforts. Okay. Most of them are cool, even on critical issues. Okay. Great. Thanks, Rob. Who else? What do you think these guys have? Another 30 seconds. Strengthen their team with the approach of achieving common goals. That's what leadership is all about. Perfect. You know everything. Come on. You know better. Okay. So Seema is saying they have clear vision to achieve their objectives. Okay. Making bold decisions. Wonderful. They accept criticism. Okay. Okay. They have a strong zeal. Okay. They empower their teams. Wonderful. Now, exactly what you are all saying, but there is something more that they have, and I'm going to share that. So solution providers and good listeners. Okay, thank you so much. So let's understand that what exactly they have, because we need to go with the pace and understand that what these gentlemen or the lady or exactly what are the top CEOs, they do it every time. So last week I was doing some research on this Saturday and Sunday. While I was doing it, I thought that this is very relevant to us because, as I said, these outstanding people have this innate ability to fight back every time, to come back every time, and they remain focused and controlled. Do you ever see that, they are in stress? You never see them. You see them, they are always coming out with plan. They are talking to people very nicely. They are managing they are communicating it very assertively. So what exactly they do? Let's find out. So what's common in these top CEOs of Fortune 500 companies? Because there is something which is common in these top CEOs of Fortune 500 companies. That's the reason they are in Fortune 500. So which means, in other words, that people who are not following some of these qualities in the highest possible manner, that is why their organizations are not in top 500. So we need to look at it, what exactly they do it very often and very, very within themselves that they do it. Number 1. Emotional balance. Now, we are going to talk everything in detail. What emotional balance? Some people call it emotional intelligence. Some people call it even maturity. So what exactly is emotional balance? We will understand in more detail. Number 2, business judgment. They have a good business judgment. So how do they bring that skill? What is business judgment that they have? How do they bring that? Number 3, personal branding. They are highly focused on personal branding because they know that their image, the way they walk, the way they talk makes a lot of difference to both people internally and externally. So how do they do personal branding? Makes them the top CEOs of those Fortune 500 companies. 4th, innovation and problem solving ability. Everybody knows that an organization cannot just work just plainly. It has to innovate. It has to bring changes both in process, products, and they have to have a pipeline, and they also have to do problem solving very often. So how do they do that? That we will also unleash. What are the actions that they take? How do they communicate? And how do they talk to their people, both internally and externally, makes them the top CEOs of this world. What do they do? And finally, they exhibit leadership. So we will talk all these 4 or 5 very important criterias, and basis which we will understand that these are some of the most common things that we see in these top CEOs when they do it. Did you get this good 5 very important qualities of top CEOs? So let's see what exactly is stored with us in more details. Let's see. The first and the foremost is emotional balance. Now, what is emotional balance? Can somebody tell me? Can somebody wants to attempt what exactly here emotional balance means? They are highly emotional balanced. These people have a very strong emotional balance. They just don't speak for the sake of speaking. So what do they do? 30 seconds. Let me see if anybody wants to talk. What exactly is emotional balance here? Okay, they are stable. Yeah, they are balanced. So yes, they are stable. So how they are stable? So let's understand that what makes these top CEOs emotionally, what do they do? First and the foremost is they don't react, they respond to situations. Because there are people, when they face failures, when they fail success, they are not able to control their emotions. They just outburst. And they don't react, they only respond, which makes them emotionally stable. Second, very important area, they listen insightfully and then they challenge people to come out with the best, and they challenge people that how they can bring out the best out of the people. So most importantly, they listen insightfully. Now, what does it mean of listen insightfully? That means that they make person with ease. They give them the complete environment that how a person can come out with best of his intentions and best of his abilities out. And at the same time, they also challenge them so that they can also do much better than what they are already doing it. Number 3, they communicate confidently, clearly, and factually. They don't mix their words. What we have seen in the value system that I shared in the beginning of the slides, that they communicate confidently, clearly, and factually. What does it mean? That they mean that the value of integrity. They are very clear in their communication. They communicate confidently. They don't mix their words. They don't say something and they do something. They do what exactly they are saying, and they talk factually. When I say factually, means that they talk the language of facts. They don't talk the language of impressions. So that makes them very clearly that how they are emotionally balanced when they are responding. And that reflects a word, we call it as maturity. Do you connect this point very clearly, that how do they connect this point of maturity, that yes, my boss is very mature because he understands me very well. This is the terminology that we use very often. Now, my question to each one of you is, what determines emotional balance? Can somebody tell me? What determines emotional balance? Tell me. What determines emotional balance? Or if you want to be emotionally balanced in your work, what exactly will help you to be emotionally balanced? Because we just discussed about what are the failures leaders talk, what excuses they have, what are the reasons a successful leader will say. So what determines emotional balance? Okay. Empathy towards people, rational than emotion. Okay. What else? Tell me. If you have to determine emotional balance in your work, whatever you are doing, because that applies to everyone, what will make you emotionally balanced? What is that one particular word or one thing that can put you in emotional balance? Okay, so they respond with fact. What else? So how they respond with facts? So why they don't react? Why they don't become immediately angry, or they start shouting on people? They respond. So what is that one thing that helps them to respond? This is what is going to give you the answer that what outstanding people have every time that they are able to, remain in focus and in control, and they come back better every time. Whereas average people tend to lose their control. Now I'm asking you, what determines that emotional balance? Respect for people. What else? No respect for people. Tell me, say something more. You already said that in your previous discussions. Respect for people, character. No, that's fine. But I just mentioned that very categorically, and you also mentioned when we were talking about. So the answer lies within what emotional state you are in, how much conscious you are when you are responding, when you are managing the situations around you, how much conscious you are, what kind of a state you are. So they remain in a state which is of consciousness. They don't allow their subconscious to follow them. And when they are in the conscious state, they are able to respond to the situation rather than react to the situation. So they are able to they are able to control their emotions while they are responding. So that is why they are emotionally balanced. And that is why they remain in a state which is full of confidence, which is full of energy, which is full of enthusiasm. And you think about it, last time, I don't know which managing director or the top head of the organization that you met. And if you have not, in the recent past, go and meet at least 2 managing directors of a company or who are heading the organization. What kind of energy level they talk with. And how do they do it every time? They are able to do it every time because they are very clearly emotionally balanced. And the only way of being in emotional balance is that you are in the consciousness of your world. Now, there is a separate session. I think we have already taken it in the past. What is conscious? What is subconscious? So what I want to behave and I want to respond, I have to be in my conscious state so that I am able to be emotionally balanced. And people who are not in their emotional balance, they are generally in their subconscious state, which can be fear, which can be anxiety, which can be, any negative feeling that can come at the time of pressure situation, and they start responding in a particular way. So you may find that some of the people, you will say, this person is very abusive. He is very, very difficult to handle because every time I go, he bursts out on me. And that's because they don't use their conscious state. They are just become unconscious. They use their subconscious. They use their unconscious state. So their unconscious comes forward because those fears will come forward the moment they are in a different state. So that's something these people have. They do it very often. Okay, let's move ahead and let's understand. I hope this is clear to you. Business judgment. Now, when we say that, what is business judgment? Now, business judgment is more to do with a very simple and a key word that they have is called as they practice strategic thinking. Now, when I use the word strategic thinking, it means that they do it very often. They practice it very often. Because business judgment will not come naturally. You have to keep taking certain steps. So that is what we call as strategic thinking. Now you may have find a word like strategic very often. This guy is very strategic. This guy is very operational. So when we say this guy is very strategic, because from that strategic thinking, they take business judgments. And that's what their role is. They have to take a lot of business, they have to take a lot of decisions. So how do they arise at making a strategic thinking? How do they arrive at a strategic decision? So how do they do that? They practice it, and they do it by going into details. They are not the person who will just look at the top picture. They will go more into details. They will go more into data. They will go more into facts. Then they absorb all these facts, figures together, and they focus on all these areas, because basis this, they create their logic, and basis which they are able to link different pieces of information and explore possibilities. And when they are able to link different pieces of information and explore possibilities, they firmly come up with a business judgment that yes, this is right. But how do they do it? They practice it, because it is easier said than done. So not every decision is right, but when they come with decision, they go into a lot of details. Now, I want you to think for a moment that in your own place, wherever you are working right now, how will you able to connect these points in your day-to-day work? Because the key question is how you will build business judgment as your skill. Can somebody respond? And one more point which has just come is they also connect to the outside world by understanding what are the new trends, what are the opportunities, and what are the threats that are coming. Because they have to keep tab. They cannot remain inside their cocoon. They have to move out and find out what is happening. So this is what helps them to bring up a business judgment, which is more strategic thinking. And that comes with practice. Now you tell me, how do you practice it? And if you are not, then why? Any respond? How their people are able to reach on this stage, that they are able to take decisions, because that is one role where you have to take a lot of decisions very frequently, and you just can't take decisions just like that. You have to do a lot of strategic thinking, and that comes with a lot of planning. Okay, so sometimes not having ownership. But how will you build this business judgment as your skill? Because this is something, guys, I can tell you that each organization is demanding from you, though they may be saying it or they may not be saying it. Every organization, because the major problem is in the mindset. Many a times we feel that this is the job of the head of the company, this is the job of the managing director of the company, this is the job of the business head of the company. No, this is everyone's job, and everyone can get into this. Okay, so yeah, I do it for most of the people are having inertia for change. Wonderful. So my only submission to you all is that how you can build this skill in you, because this is something that will be needed every time, not necessarily whenever you are working, but in your personal work also. Okay, so the key word is how you practice this and you are able to create business judgment. Next, we talked about personal branding. Now, what do you mean by personal branding? The core area about personal branding here is that being the head of the organization, these people, these Fortune 500 top CEOs, what do? That they, first of all, cannot work in silos. You understand what is silos? Can somebody tell me what is the meaning of silos? They don't work in silos. Can anybody tell me what do you understand by silos? Let me see how many of you know that. Okay. So silos, right? Thank you, Rao. The silos means alone. You can't work in isolation. You have to work with people. And what kind of people you are? You are working with people who are within your organization, who are your peers. So they work with people within that system. So they have to, every time, they have to work with people within, and we have to also work with people who are outside. Now, when you have to work with people within and outside, how do they create their personal branding? Now, at this point of time, I want you to think of wherever you are working or you worked before, and think of those leaders, and you will find that they have a very huge impact of personal branding. Now, how do they do personal branding? Number one, they set examples internally consistently. They lead by very solid examples. Every time they come, they will energize you. They will show you the way they walk, the way they talk, and the way they bring results, because that's something motivates people internally. Number two, they are very clear in their communication. So every time in your organization, when you see your managing director is walking in, what kind of communication? What does it mean by clear communication? It means that they will always talk about the culture. They will always talk about the values. They will always talk about the results of business performance, how they are able to create it. They are going to set, what do they do in clear communication? They set people accountable for. They clearly tell what is expected out of people. They clearly set benchmarks when they are communicating what is good, what is best, and what is not acceptable. You will find that they will always say that, every time the business is not always important. What is important is the right way of doing business. So they communicate their values very clearly. And that's what helps them to create their personal branding. And because they are the head of the organization, Most of their talks, whenever you attend their meetings or you attend their seminars, you will find that they will be talking a lot of time on the core values of the organization, the core culture of their organization. And by doing this, they create their personal branding. And again, as I said, it is like walking the talk. And that is precisely mean clear communication. Number three, they act fairly and encourage others. What does it mean? They act fairly because they know what is right for the organization. They don't look at people, but at the same time, they encourage others when they identify that someone is good in certain areas, how that person can be given more opportunity and more exposure. They don't say that, everything is done by me in this organization. They very clearly say that this gentleman or this lady is more powerful in doing these things. So they act fairly and they encourage others. That's precisely helps them to create their personal brands. Now, I want you to think a bit about all those people that you have found in your organization, wherever you work and you are working right now, that does your CEOs or does your CEOs create that kind of personal branding? So that requires a lot of courage and that requires a lot of effort, because leadership is not just a leadership tag. It also means a lot of sacrifice. It also means a lot of patience to build all these things. So communicating very regularly with the team, both internally and externally. They also do a lot of branding with respect to when they move out. They move out very confidently. When I say move out very confidently means when they meet external people, they build their networks. They don't limit themselves to within the story. They are not only seen very strong within their organization, they are also seen very strong when they speak in public, when they create that aura. And that what makes them a very strong personal branding in their system. Now, my question to you at this point of time, wherever you are working, whatever you are working, how can you build your personal brand? Any comments? Any comments on this? How can you build your personal brand? Okay, attitude, what else? By exhibiting same values. Okay. By communicating with confidence. Right. Great. Anybody else? My day to working. Wonderful. So in very simple word, what is basically a personal brand for each one of us? Our simplest thing of us, a personal brand is as simple as my business card. The business card where my name is mentioned, which I give it to others, and what others see me is through my business card. But more than that business card is what value that I create around me will carry my personal value or my personal branding to others. Because that is something that people are looking up to you. It's not your visiting card. That's a very simple business card that you are representing any company at this point of time. But what is more important is that what value you are creating around you, that people look at you, is your personal branding. That means how you are setting examples in the place of work that you are doing. Are you a person who is complaining, or are you a person who is creating value? Are you a person who is able to clearly follow the values of the organization and then live those values so that others can follow you? That's precisely can help you to create your personal branding. Because every time that I'm sharing these slides, I'm also trying to tell you what these people do. Now think of all those top CEOs, what kind of ways they live their organizational life internally and externally. They do a lot on their personal branding. Let's move ahead quickly. And innovation and problem solving ability. Now we all know that every organization needs continuous improvement. You cannot say that what you started 10 years back or 10 months back is going to remain same. So they have to work continuously to bring continuous improvement in the organization vis-a-vis the kind of products, the kind of services, the kind of processes, the kind of systems, the kind of people, the kind of office, everything they work on it so that there is a continuous improvement, and people are very keen. These CEOs are very, very clear that, how they can improvise their processes, they can improvise their technology so that they can move ahead and people also move ahead. So on one hand, they talk about materialistic thing in terms of continuous improvement. And on the other hand, they also help people to challenge themselves. They set higher standards. They set high standards by achieving and showing them that this is what is available for them. And not only that, they bring a lot of focus, drive, and determination when they have to achieve their objectives. Now, if they are not showing those kind of qualities of high focus, high drive, and high determination, their teams will never follow that. And not only they do it internally, but they do it externally. What I mean to say internally and externally, that sometimes you will see that, a lot of people say something in front of the people and on the back they say something else. So they don't do it. They believe in what they are saying, and they try to bring those changes in the form of innovation. And they also follow something which is called as persistence to see that those things till the end of till the time that particular thing is achieved. They don't leave it in between. They are very persistent in their efforts. They don't just start something and then they forget after some time. They will ensure that whatever they have begun, it has reached to his desired objective to that end. And that is the reason this one quality they have is persistent. In other words, people say that they don't give up. And most importantly, they are resilient to overcome inevitable. What is the meaning of resilience? That means they have the perseverance to carry on their effort to overcome the inevitable. That means whatever is not possible, they are resilient, they're determined, they're focused, they're very clear that how they are going to achieve it. This is something helps them to create innovation and bring change and build higher standard for their people. And every time they raise the benchmark, so now how do you connect all these points? Now you look back your own organization, wherever you are working. Last year you achieved a particular figure. This year you aim little higher. You bring in new product, you bring in new trainings, you bring in new technology, and you aim more higher and more higher and more higher. This is what I'm saying, they set those high standards. If for achieving this, they need to bring technology, they will do it, ensure that everything is possibly made so that they achieve those objectives. Now, this is precisely these people do it very, very often. And you think about any organization, whatever Fortune 500 company is doing, and that is the reason they are touching our lives today. And fourth, and the most important, is leadership. And very simply, I can say, because we are talking about leadership throughout, that if you follow all the above four qualities consistently, repeatedly, the more you use all four of them, leadership is automatically going to happen, because leadership is the topmost cherry on the cake, which is coming after you have filled these four important pillars in your setting wherever you are working right now. And this is one quote that I got from this Jeff Bezos, which says that the common question that gets asked in business is why. That's a good question, but an equally valid question is why not? So that's how they challenge people. That's how they challenge situations. It's not about why, but why not? Why not we achieve this? Why not we get that? Now, these are some of the most important areas that each one of us have to look. So how did you find these four key areas? Did you find it useful about the CEOs, how they work? I'll give you another 30 seconds. Just give me your thoughts that are coming in your mind when you are, so I'm not forcing you to think. I want you to think whatever is coming in your mind when you have understood some of these traits which you have seen just now. Okay, meaningful. Okay, very useful. Wonderful. So to an extent, did it serve your purpose when we started our webinar and I asked each one of you that what is the reason that you're sitting over here today? To an extent, because it's not over. I'm just trying to connect that. When we started our webinar, I asked you some of the questions, and I'm asking you now that did it help you till the time you saw this? Okay, use for my professional career, right? Thank you so much. So very much meaningful. Great. Wonderful. So now let's see that what do we have ahead. Now, this is what I'm saying, that there are two invisible forces that shapes us. So whatever we are doing and how we are responding, there are two invisible. When I say invisible, because these are the things that comes very often to us in our day-to-day work. Number one, ability versus your state. So each one of us have abilities to do things, but in what state, what emotional state we do that. Now, how is your emotional state will define the way you act, the way you behave. So the more you remain, so when I say that what is the difference between outstanding people and average people? So outstanding people are the one who remain in a resourceful state. They don't complain about resources. They remain in resourceful state every time. That is the reason they don't complain about resources, but they are more resourceful. They know how to get those resources. They are resourceful. Their resourcefulness is so high that they are able to use their resources faster, whereas an average person is not able to. But how do they use their resourcefulness very often is when they are in that state, when they are in their emotional state, when they are in their conscious state. So the more they are into their emotional conscious state, they are able to achieve that. And that is what we say, that your emotion brings out your actions. And your actions are actually what you do every day. How you respond to people, how do you respond to situations, how do you respond to things around you will define your entire shape, that how your leadership journey will work. And precisely, I'm going to ask you, do you want to be the CEO? So do you need resources or you need to be resourceful? Ask these questions. So this is something like, it reminds me of Mahabharata, when Krishna asked Arjun and Duryodhan, what do you want? And Duryodhan was offered every resource in terms of the army, weapons, everything he took. Whereas Arjun was smarter and he said, I wanted you only. So that is his resourcefulness that gave him Krishna on his side, and we all know what happened at that time. This is precisely will make you the CEO of your life, CEO of your business. And at this point of time, what Arun Thukral can give you and can help you is, can make you an innermost shift, because at the end of the day, you have to make an innermost shift to achieve the best and be an outstanding individual through whatever I have learned through coaching. I'm sure some of you who have attended my coaching sessions have experienced that kind of a thing, which has happened already to some of them, which I started. So if you want to make that innermost shift, you can do it, and you can be in this state every time. And that's precisely the core message that I'm trying to share over here. So if you want to be successful, if you want to be a resourceful person, and if you do not want to be an average person who tend to lose their ability or who tend to lose their courage at most important times, they are the one who makes the difference, who make an innermost shift. And that's what our coaching model at HCN helps people to bring that change consistently and for continuous period. So I hope you would have found this session useful, attractive, and somewhere you all can achieve that. With this, I thank you, each one of you, and I look forward for your feedbacks wherever you feel comfortable, anywhere that you feel, because the whole objective is how I can make you all reach to your own leadership goals wherever you are. That's my mission. And we meet again on 24th. So do share your feedbacks. How did you find this session? How did it work for you? And how you are going to make a change. And if you want to get coached, you can reach out to me on a separate WhatsApp, and we can get connected on this. Thank you very much, and a good night to each one of you. Thanks.